As somebody who loves consuming stories, particularly those that exist within science fiction and fantasy worlds, I find myself increasingly frustrated with the lack of representation in mainstream media. You know what I'm talking about.
The chief's lands are those his men can hold with arms, Temujin.
The market chief comes to dispute them?
You know what? You don't deserve our money.
This is especially true in video games, where it's not so much poor quality of diverse representation as it is the sheer lack of quantity. I mean, seriously, every main character is the same white dude.
What? Did you think I was gone forever?
And it's not just about preferring to see people of color or trans and queer people on screen. Characters of these identities, when done well, can actually have a really positive impact on the way the world views them.
And Kunari don't treat those Akun people any differently than a real man.
They are real men, just like you are.
Having positive representation can also lift up the young people these characters are portraying. Seeing somebody who looks like you saving the world can be a very transformative experience for a child, and it's a feeling not everybody gets to experience often, if at all. There are a few diamonds in the rough where talented and dedicated creators get to bring these nuanced characters to life, but it'll be a long time before we ever see the kind of representation we desperately need. Hollywood has a lot to learn before it's able to tell these kinds of stories.
But I believe Aang can save the world.
So, you've seen the title of this video. What does Dungeons & Dragons have to do with any of this? First of all, D&D is no longer the game of sweaty, cis-het dungeon nerds eating Cheetos in their parents' basement. It's cool now. No, seriously. Look, even Vin Diesel is playing it. Vin Diesel loves it. Just look up a playthrough on YouTube and you'll find that this is a game that can be enjoyed by anybody and everybody. D&D is best described as a tabletop role-playing game, usually consisting of at least 3 players. One person, the Dungeon Master, is the narrator for a fantasy or science fiction world filled with quests and adventure in which the other players are allowed to explore.
I hope you guys don't find that song annoying because I'm committing to it.
It's your what you talking about, Willis.
You can slay dragons or befriend them, take part in epic space battles and massive wars, save villages, find treasure. The opportunities are actually endless. The only limit is the player's imagination and the dice, which will decide whether or not an action succeeds or fails. My theory is that if we're not able to find the kind of representation we want, why don't we just make it ourselves? While not everybody has the time, money, energy, or passion to create their own TV show or video game, anyone can play Dungeons & Dragons.
Simon's idea of costumes for a D&D session are pretty much beards. That's it. You just make sure I've got a few beards, I'm sorted.
All you need is a book, some dice, paper, and pencils, and you're ready to go. You can actually picture it traveling through mountains, deserts, and forests, conquering castles with a hodgepodge party of all sorts of gender identities, races, cultures, and backgrounds. Just take a look at the books and you'll see that this game is built for making diverse characters. If it interests you, Fantastical Worlds also create a unique opportunity to play around with social commentary and design scenarios that replicate pieces of history or something going on in our world currently.
The sacrifices I had to make, I did them to protect Albion. If a few had to suffer, it was to build an army.
In one of my campaigns, I've mapped the kingdom after the city of Chicago, with the South being generally more impoverished and dangerous, and the ruling class doing little to help the citizens living there. One of my parties has become determined to do something about this corruption, and in this world, they can create change significantly faster than one can in the real world. They just do it with magic and swords. I also like to make a lot of my bad guys human men, but that's just me. Maybe you're looking for a little bit more of an escape, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with leaving the politics behind once you sit down at the table and go treasure hunting in some long forgotten forest. You can still do that with a super diverse cast of characters, and it can still be just as rewarding of an experience. Ideally, there will come a day when we'll be able to see the kind of representation we deserve on all of our favorite streaming sites and TV channels. But until that day comes, I for one can find some sense of peace in sitting down with a group of my friends and telling our own stories. The kind we're not going to hear on Netflix or HBO, not just because they're as queer and diverse as we want them to be, but because through the process of playing Dungeons & Dragons, these stories become uniquely our own. And that is a really special experience anybody can enjoy.